I used to think I had everything figured out. My name's Ethan Carter, and while I wouldn't say I was perfect, I took pride in the life I built. I had a stable marriage, a solid career in cybersecurity, and a home that felt safe, earned through years of dedication. My job gave me an advantage, a knack for spotting red flags and uncovering hidden details, but in my personal life, I never saw the need for that skill. Trust was everything, or at least that's what I convinced myself. My wife, Lauren, worked in human resources at a big marketing firm. Her job meant she was always surrounded by polished, charismatic coworkers, the type who always knew the right thing to say, the right way to laugh, the right way to carry themselves. I wasn't like that. I never cared for office politics or the drama of who was secretly sleeping with whom. I focused on my work, my home, and the woman I'd been married to for 8 years. But something shifted. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Lauren used to call me during her lunch breaks, chatting about office gossip, who annoyed her, what ridiculous corporate initiative was happening now, how the coffee machine had betrayed her yet again. Just normal, everyday conversations that filled the gaps in our day. But those calls became rare, then non-existent. She started staying late more often, always with the same excuse, big project, I'll be home late. Don't wait up. At night, I noticed the changes too. The way she'd sigh when I tried to hold her, how she turned away instead of leaning into me. She used to laugh at my jokes, reach for me first. Now she'd press a distracted kiss to my cheek and mumble, I'm just tired. Then there were the phone calls, once taken in the living room, now hushed whispers behind closed doors. The bathroom door clicking shut, the sound of water running to muffle her voice. And yet, I still ignored it. The first undeniable sign came late one night when I caught a glimpse of her phone screen lighting up. A message. That was amazing. Let's do it again this week. My stomach twisted, but I didn't read any further. I turned away, forcing myself to believe there was some innocent explanation. A joke, maybe. A wrong number. Anything but the obvious truth clawing at the back of my mind. I told myself, don't overthink it. You trust her. I came home later than expected that night. My business trip had stretched longer than planned. Endless meetings, client dinners, the usual corporate nonsense. I was drained, but more than anything, I just wanted to see Lauren, wrap my arms around her, feel some sense of normalcy. Sliding the key into the lock, I noticed something odd. The door turned too easily. It wasn't bolted. Lauren always locked up before bed. The house was silent. Too silent. No hum of the TV, no faint music from her speaker, no clinking of a wine glass. She loved unwinding with a drink before bed. But tonight, nothing. I stepped inside cautiously, my gut already tightening. In the dim light of the living room, I spotted a nearly empty bottle of tequila sitting on the coffee table. Beside it, a glass with the remnants of golden liquor. Lauren didn't drink tequila. And she sure as hell didn't drink alone. Every step up the stairs felt heavier, slower, like my body already knew something was horribly wrong. The closer I got to our bedroom, the stronger the scent became, expensive perfume, mixed with something else. Something off. I pushed the door open. And my world stopped. Lauren was sprawled across our bed, half-dressed, unconscious. Her silky camisole had ridden up, exposing her stomach, her skirt pushed down just enough to reveal faint smudges of fingerprints on her thighs. But none of that compared to what was scrawled across her bare skin. Thick black marker. Bold, crude letters. Thanks for the wife. We had a great time. The silence in that moment was deafening. I stood there, frozen, my mind unable to fully process what I was seeing. The sheets were tangled, the pillows stained with lipstick that wasn't hers. Then my eyes landed on her phone, glowing with a new message. It had been sent just minutes ago. How's she doing? Still knocked out. Haha, that was the best office party ever. Can't wait to tell you all the details tomorrow. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone. My breath turned to stone in my lungs as I scrolled up through the chat history. Photos. Videos. Messages. Lauren at the party, drunk, laughing, draped over different men. One kissing her. Another with his hands on her thighs. Then worse. So much worse. I scrolled through the disgusting proof, feeling nothing. No rage. No pain. Just a cold, numbing void. If someone had told me this could happen to me, I would have laughed. I trusted her. I thought betrayal was something that happened to other people. But here it was. I slipped the phone into my pocket, ran a hand over my face, and forced myself to stay calm. There was no point in waking her up. She wouldn't even understand the hell she was about to walk into. I turned, walked out of the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. I had work to do. It was time for war. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dim glow of the living room, Lauren's phone in my hands, scrolling through every vile message, every explicit photo, every smug conversation between the men who saw my wife as nothing more than a game. They laughed. They bragged. They exchanged details, trading stories like she was some kind of office trophy. One of them even had the audacity to call her the company bonus. I stared at the words scrawled across her stomach in thick, mocking letters. Thanks for the wife. We had a great time. My hands tightened into fists. I had two choices. I could scream at her, wake her up, demand answers, beg for an explanation that wouldn't change a damn thing. Or I could do what I do best. I was an IT security specialist. And now, that was my greatest weapon. Sliding her phone into my pocket, I stood up, my mind already working through the possibilities. Lauren was still passed out, sprawled carelessly on our bed, lost in whatever drunken dreams she had. Once, I would have pulled the blanket over her, kissed her forehead, whispered something soft and loving. Now, I only felt disgust. I turned on my laptop, the cold light from the screen illuminating the empty space where my marriage used to be. First, I cloned all of Lauren's messages, photos, and call logs onto an external drive. Then I went deeper. As an HR manager, Lauren had access to a goldmine of corporate data, employee records, payroll details, confidential correspondence. But I wasn't just looking for evidence of her affairs. I was looking for leverage, weaknesses, secrets, something to burn their entire world down. And I found plenty. Richard Walker, the CEO, the face of the company. Charismatic, powerful, but his laptop contained too many skeletons. Emails about offshore accounts, insider trading, and affairs with multiple employees. If this leaked, he was finished. Tyler Mitchell, the office playboy, the loudest one in the messages. He sent photos from their private parties, bragged about his conquests. His weakness, his fiancée, who had no idea. Emily Carter, Lauren's so-called best friend. Her accomplice. She helped cover for Lauren, gave her alibis, encouraged the lies. I checked her records and found unauthorized expense reports, money being funneled for personal use. Enough to destroy her career. The others, the men who thought they could laugh at me behind my back, who saw my wife as nothing more than entertainment. They thought they'd get away with it. They wouldn't. I infiltrated the company's internal systems, extracting exactly what I needed. I wasn't going to lash out blindly. I was going to dismantle them piece by piece. I drafted several anonymous emails. One to HR, exposing the suspicious bonuses linked to Richard Walker. Another to Tyler's fiancée, with undeniable proof of his infidelities. A third to the accounting department, suggesting an internal audit of Emily Carter's transactions. But I didn't send them. Not yet. Timing was everything. For now, I stood over my wife, watching her sleep peacefully, oblivious to the storm that was about to rip her world apart. She would wake up in the morning completely unaware that her life was already over. The morning started like any other. Lauren shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her temples, her hair a tangled mess from the previous night. She looked like hell, makeup smeared, exhaustion written all over her face. She groaned as she poured herself a cup of coffee, completely unaware that her life was already crumbling beneath her feet. I sat at the table, sipping my own coffee, watching her. "Rough night?" I asked casually. She winced at the sound of my voice, forcing a weak smile. "Yeah, work party got a little out of hand." "Work party?" I almost laughed. "Hope it was worth it," I said, setting my mug down. Her brows furrowed slightly, but she was too preoccupied with her hangover to question my words. She mumbled something about needing a shower and wandered off. I checked my phone. It was time. The first domino had already tipped. At exactly 9:15 a.m., The headlines hit. Corporate fraud allegations surface at Walker & Company, CEO under investigation. I didn't need to watch the news to know what was happening. Richard Walker was scrambling. Board members were demanding explanations. The media was swarming. By noon, the company had released a statement announcing an internal review. Richard was fighting for his career, but the evidence was too damning. And he had no idea where it came from. By 12:30 p.m., the office was buzzing. Lauren walked into work, dressed in her usual white blouse and pencil skirt, that confident stride that used to turn heads. But today, the stares weren't admiring. They were something else. She felt it immediately. The shift in energy. The hushed whispers. The stolen glances. Something was wrong. She passed a group of colleagues near the break room, offering a polite, "Good morning," but they didn't respond. One woman glanced at her, then quickly looked away, her lips pressed together in an unreadable expression. Lauren frowned, shaking off the unease as she reached her desk. Then she opened her inbox. 145 unread emails. Her stomach tightened. That wasn't normal. She clicked on the first one. Subject: Urgent, Internal Ethics Investigation. Lauren, we have received concerning reports regarding internal ethics violations and HR's role in covering for misconduct. Please report to an emergency meeting at 2 p.m. We strongly advise you to prepare an explanation. Her blood ran cold. She clicked another email. This one wasn't from management. It was a chat thread from her own department. Did you see this? Is this real? Oh my God, I had no idea she was like this. Poor husband. Her hands trembled as she scrolled down, then she saw the photos. Screenshots. Messages. Lauren at the party. Laughing. Hands on Tyler's chest. Sitting on Richard's lap. Hotel room photos. No. No, no, no. She shoved her chair back violently, her breath coming in short gasps. Who did this? Who had access to these messages? How did they get out? Her mind raced as she reached for her phone, her fingers frantically scrolling through contacts. First, Emily. Declined. Then Tyler. Call rejected. Panic clawed at her throat. She stood up, ignoring the curious stares from a hallway, and stormed toward Richard Walker's office. He had to know something. But as soon as she stepped inside, she knew she had made a mistake. The door slammed shut behind her. Richard stood there, his face red with fury, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. His jaw clenched as he threw a folder onto the desk. Printed messages. Explicit conversations. Undeniable proof. His voice was low, seething. What the hell have you done? Lauren's lips parted, but no words came out. I don't know how this happened, she whispered, barely able to breathe. Everything got leaked, he hissed. Everything. The board is furious. They're looking for someone to blame. Her stomach dropped. Are they firing me? Richard leaned in, his eyes cold. You're about to be erased, Lauren. And this is only the beginning. By the time she stepped out of the office, her world had already begun to crumble. Whispers followed her down the hallway. Stifled laughter. Disgusted glances. She reached for her phone, her fingers shaking as she dialed. I watched from a distance, leaning back in my chair as my phone vibrated. Lauren. I let it ring. Then it stopped. A message appeared. I know you hate me. But please, just talk to me. I need to hear it from you. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the message. Once, I would have answered immediately. Once, I would have been desperate to hear her voice, to get an explanation, to believe some lie that made it easier to stay. But not anymore. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. There was nothing left to say. I didn't go home that night. I knew she would be waiting. Instead, I let her sit with the weight of what was happening. Let her feel that slow, creeping dread as her world fell apart around her, piece by piece. When I finally did walk through the front door the next evening, she was there, sitting on the couch, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. The moment she saw me, she jumped up, wringing her hands like a child caught stealing. You know, don't you? She whispered. I dropped my keys onto the table, exhaling slowly as I met her gaze. "No," I said flatly. "What could I possibly know?" She swallowed hard, but before she could say anything else, I pulled a folder from my bag and tossed it onto the coffee table. She hesitated, then reached out with trembling fingers, flipping it open. Her breath hitched. Printed screenshots. Explicit messages. Photos from the office party. Conversations where she and her coworkers laughed about their little secret. "Tom, you were incredible. We need to do it again before Ethan gets back." I watched as the color drained from her face. "Ethan, please," she choked out, shaking her head as she rubbed her hands over her face, as if she could somehow erase the shame written all over it. "Please what?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. "Please pretend this never happened." I let out a quiet chuckle, shaking my head. "Please forgive you." Her eyes darted to mine, desperate. "It's not what you think." I cut her off with a laugh, but there was no humor in it. It was the laugh of a man who had already lost everything. "Oh, so it's not." I leaned back against the chair, lacing my fingers together. "I must be mistaken, then. Tell me, Lauren, at what point did I misunderstand? Was it when I found you drunk, unconscious, with a message written across your stomach? Or was it when I saw the video from your office party, where you were sitting on your boss's lap?" Her head snapped up, eyes wide with horror. "The video," she whispered. I nodded, casually pulling out my phone. A few taps, and the recording began to play. The shaky footage from that night. The laughter. The way she let Richard's hands roam freely over her body. The way she leaned into Tyler, whispering something in his ear before pressing her lips to his. The way they cheered. She shut her eyes tight, her hands flying to her temples as if she could somehow will it all away. "Stop," she begged, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, stop." "No," I said coldly, leaning in slightly. "This is your life. Your choices. Watch." Tears welled in her eyes, her breath coming in short, uneven gasps. "This was fun for you, wasn't it?" I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. "It was fun until I found out." She suddenly dropped to her knees in front of me, grabbing my hands. "Ethan, I don't know what came over me. I was drunk, Her voice cracked. "I felt lonely. You were always away. I yanked my hands away from hers, standing up and towering over her. "Lonely?" I scoffed. "So you slept with half your office because you were lonely?" Her breathing grew erratic. "It was a mistake. A huge mistake. I never meant to. A mistake," I repeated, tilting my head. "Lauren, a mistake is forgetting to turn off the coffee pot. A mistake is sending an email to the wrong person." I grabbed the folder and threw it onto the floor beside her. This was deliberate." She sobbed, gripping the fabric of my shirt as if holding on to me would somehow keep me from walking away. "I'll fix this," she pleaded. "I'll prove to you that I'm not this person. I swear to you, Ethan, I can change." I stared down at her, expression unreadable. "You can't prove something that isn't real," I said simply. Her sobs turned violent, her shoulders shaking. "I love you," she choked out. I let out a humorless laugh, shaking my head. "Love," I repeated, looking at her as if she were a stranger. "Lauren, love is trust. Love is respect. Love is not letting your selfish desires destroy someone else's life." She lunged forward, grabbing my hands again. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "I understand everything now. Please, Ethan." Slowly, I pulled my hands away from hers. "You already lost me, Lauren." Her gasp was sharp, like I had physically struck her. Tears streamed down her face, but I wasn't listening anymore. I turned and walked to the bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing. She stood frozen, watching in horror as I folded my clothes, methodical and unhurried. "You can't just walk away like this," she whimpered, her voice breaking into hysteria. I stopped at the door, turned to face her one last time. "I already have." And then I shut the door behind me. I walked out of that house without looking back. The air outside was cold, crisp against my skin as I stepped onto the sidewalk, gripping the handle of my suitcase. I could still hear her sobbing inside, her cries muffled by the walls of a home that no longer felt like mine. I didn't care. Everything I thought we had, every memory, every promise, every dream of a future together, had been reduced to nothing. As I moved down the street, my mind replayed the last 24 hours. The moment I saw those messages. The moment I found her sprawled out, used and discarded, with that sickening message scrawled across her stomach. The way she had begged, grasping at me like a drowning woman clinging to driftwood. But I wasn't her lifeline anymore. She had made her choices. And now, she was drowning alone. I stopped in front of the courthouse, staring at the heavy wooden doors. Inside, my lawyer was already handling the paperwork. All that was left was a signature, a formality. But the truth was, the real ending had already happened long before this moment. It ended when I read those messages. It ended when I saw her in that bed. It ended when I realized the woman I loved never really existed. I exhaled, rolling my shoulders before turning away. I didn't need to be there. It was done. I pulled my phone from my pocket, barely glancing at the screen as it vibrated again. Lauren. I let it ring. Then another message popped up. Ethan, please. I know you hate me, but just talk to me. I need to hear it from you. I stared at the words. Once, I would have answered in a heartbeat. I would have picked up the call, desperate to understand, to find some way to fix what was already broken. But now, I knew better. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. There was nothing left to say. I kept walking, the suitcase rolling steadily behind me. The city stretched ahead, unfamiliar streets, strangers passing by, a world that no longer revolved around her. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trapped in the past. I wasn't bound to her lies. I wasn't holding on to something that never really existed. A new life lay ahead. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew one thing for certain. I would never look back. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.